Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso.
Siluri nemici avvistati!
Girando,
la nostra squadra ha catturato l'area!
Del turbando al riposo. Delle belle turbando al riposo. La cisetta
in aria!
d'amor. Non più vrei
mira precisa
quel cappello leggero galante, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante, quel vermiglio d'onesco color, quel vermiglio d'onesco color. Non più frai quei pennacchini, quel cappello, quella chioma, quell'aria brillante.
Bersaglio colpito!
Non più tra i farfalloni amoroso, non più giorno girato, delle belle turbando al riposo. Antico d'amor, delle belle turbando al riposo.
Bersaglio colpito!
Tra guerrieri
abbiamo colpito il nemico!
Rannuzzati in freddo sacco,
ottimo lavoro!
schioppo in
Bersaglio
spalla,
colpito!
sciabla a fianco, collo dritto, chiuso franco.
Abbiamo colpito il nemico!
Un casco, un gran
ottimo lavoro!
Bersaglio
colpito! Abbiamo colpito il nemico!
Poco cantante.
Ottimo lavoro!
Fandango, una faccia per il fango, per montagne e per valloni,
ottimo lavoro!
con nevi e salioni, al concerto di tromboni, di bombarde e di cannoni, che le porre e tutti i tuoni all'orecchio fan fischiare. Non più frai quei pennacchini, non più frai quel cappello, non più frai quella chioma, non più frai quell'aria brillante. Non più frai farfalloni amoroso, notte giorno girato, delle belle
abbiamo colpito il nemico!
Narcisetto ad un giro d'amor, delle belle turbando al riposo.
Abbiamo colpito!
Narcisetto ad un giro d'amor.
La situazione è sotto controllo!
Che rovino alla vittoria, alla gloria militar. Che rovino alla vittoria, alla gloria militar. Alla gloria militar, alla gloria militar.
Abbiamo colpito il nemico! Siamo sotto attacco!
Hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Warships Blitz with Terry. The Italian battleship line is now out, the new tech tree line, and well, that calls for one thing, and one thing only, to look at the tier 10, the Christoforo Colombo. This would be Columbus, who was Italian, if you didn't know. And this is in fact the last of Ferrati's battleship designs, sort of inspired by from the early days of the 20th century. She's built around the quadruple turrets that we've seen before. These are still the same 381mm guns, at least on paper. And yeah, we've got 4 of them, 2 forward and 2 aft. That is a lot of firepower. In return, this thing's obviously very big. And as we can see that we only have 2 funnels with obviously more modern machinery than what was imagined during the time of the First World War. Also, the secondaries aren't 170mm, which was the original design, but are only the 150mm secondaries, which makes a lot more sense for something that's a bit more contemporary. But yeah, this would have been the G design from the final variations of these battleship designs, sort of, with a Second World War Moorish flavor if the Italians had ever built something that size, which they hadn't. But it's always good to know that these things at least have some root in history and aren't completely made up. Right, so what do we have in the Christoforo Colombo? Now, the obvious comparison has to be made with the Lepanto. If you've seen my Lepanto review, you know that I am very, very fond of the Lepanto, which is unusual because it's a tier 9 battleship. And tier 9 battleships, or tier 9 ships in general, except for destroyers maybe, tend to suffer a little bit from tier 10 matchmaking. Because there's a lot of big guns around at these tiers. There's a lot of very heavily armored ships around at these tiers. And an increasingly large amount of things like 457mm guns, which can be pretty nasty when faced with them. So let's compare the two, the Christoforo Colombo and the Lepanto. The first thing that stands out is that the Colombo gets the precise aiming skill, which if you have set your captain up expecting that, given that everything up to tier 9 did not have the skill, you didn't need one, well, tough luck. Now you do, but we do get some detail in that later on. The other thing that you get is what we already know. We've got the fuel smoke 3, lasting for 20 seconds, and we've got the scout plane 2, which gives us better firing range for 16% for 30 seconds, and obviously also gives us things like spotting range, right? For finding destroyers and things that might be nearby, because it is an airplane; it circles around you. We also have the auto-secondaries and the semi-armor piercing shells, as we had before. In terms of armor plating, even though the ship is significantly bigger than the Lepanto by the looks of it, all we get is a bit more hit points. So we're still sticking with the not terrible, but also not grand armor scheme. It's not bad, especially the torpedo damage reduction. And once again, this is the Pugliese system that was actually existing in the Littorio class. Very good torpedo damage reduction. So that's something to build on. She's a bit slower to get up to speed because it's a bigger ship. She's a bit harder to turn around, and the rudder is also a bit less responsive. Not by a massive margin, though. But yeah, the usual stuff that you see larger ships equal those sort of things. Now the guns are, on paper, still the exact same guns that we've seen on the Roma or on the Vittorio Veneto at tier 8. Only that they aren't, because the values have been adjusted. Both those that you can see and maybe also those that you can't. So, and the first things, we are up at practically Soviet levels of reload here at this point. With 25 seconds. That is very long as a reload for these guns, but we're getting a lot of them, so that compensates somewhat. The base range of 13.9 kilometers isn't particularly long, so for tier 10 that can often be a bit of an issue, as we have seen on the Soviet battleships. But the scout plane more than compensates for this, because you get, I think, almost 16 kilometers with the scout plane. And obviously you can do things like camos and stuff to compensate for that as well. They do more damage. And once again, the difference between the semi-armor piercing and the armor piercing in terms of alpha damage is almost non-existent. They're doing about the same amount of damage. It's just that so it's not like the heavy cruisers where you do actually see quite a bit difference. But it's not a huge difference in alpha damage. The difference is obviously A, in the penetration, the armor piercing having the better pen, and B, in the fact that semi-armor piercing can't overpenetrate. And if you have 16 guns and you're doing an alpha damage of over 1,800 and your target is a destroyer, some hilarity can ensue. So that's the thing. The secondaries have been slightly buffed as well. We've got the same amount, and they are starting to have a really, really decent range with 6.7 kilometers, and they're doing a little bit more damage as well. Plus, we still got the auto secondaries. They're still only 90 millimeters, so they're not going to do a huge amount, but once again, a little bit more damage. The AA is a little bit better, but not by a huge margin once again. It's not an AA ship, that. So in that regard, it's pretty traditional there. But all in all, it feels like a natural progression of the Lepanto. Get a little bit more of everything and stick another gun turret on it. Well, and the precise aiming. It sort of is and it sort of isn't. So the one thing that, and I'll open that here, maybe we can see it a bit better. One thing that you'll notice when we're playing, and that I actually didn't notice for the first 2 battles or so that I was playing, and I'm not sure if this works for the Lepanto as well, I actually have to try that, is that the rear turrets are turning 360 degrees. So it might not look like it, but apparently there is actually enough space. So the Italians have not fitted the secret Soviet transphasic gun barrels on these ships that can just clip through the superstructure. But there is actually, if you look the barbettes on these turrets, it's a bit deceiving, because you'd think that the X turret here is a little bit too close to the superstructure. But if you look at the barbette, like the little cylinder that it sits on, well, little, you see that that's actually very far forward. So if she rotates, you just really get the barrels coming around the rear, and that actually would work. And it's the same. It's presumably the same thing for the Y turret. So these things can turn 360 degrees, which means that well, they don't have the best gun angles in the world. So you do have to show quite a bit of side, but in return, if you're aiming like that, like let's say you're aiming over that way, and you need to aim to the other side in a traditional battleship, you have the guns turn around the rear, right? Which is going to take a while, and not in this thing, because you can turn them around on the forward side and get them pointing in the other direction. So this is this allows, once you realize that, this allows for some really interesting things you can do, and you can compensate a lot for well, the relatively poor angles and for the okay armor and the not too great range when you are not having the scout plane up, by still being aggressive but being bow in quite a little bit more than you would otherwise be. But let's start having a look at the setup. A 25-second base reload. You get the chance to use the torpedo damage reduction or to use the elite gun operator. I would say if you're at tier 10 and you feel like you're still missing, you're still having problems with figuring out when you're about to be torpedoed, then you may have to practice that a bit. Personally, I would recommend going for the gun operator, especially that if you're going bow in, you only get 50% of your firepower forward. You do need to swing the turrets around quite a bit, and even though they are 360 degrees, it still takes a moment to get them to the other side because of the relatively poor side angles that they have. So that would be my personal choice here. Also, the destroyers, like I mentioned earlier, will be careful with rushing you. Or at least they'll learn that very quickly, that they need to be careful, because you can do some severe damage to these things. In terms of equipment, one thing that would sort of come to mind would be to use the main battery mod 2 to get the reload down a bit, because 25 seconds is relatively long. I have had trouble with losing turrets that way relatively frequently. It's like once every other battle. So in the end, I've just gone for the main battery mod 3. You could also go for the turret traverse if you wanted to. So that's also not a terrible thing. But she is not the most precise. And this is a problem you'll often have with the quadruple turrets of anything. They tend to be a bit questionable in terms of dispersion. So she's not the most precise, but you do have the precise aim. So, if you need to do a bit of long-range gunnery, that's not a terrible thing to have. I do have the deck protection mod. I like the deck protection mod. I haven't actually measured the impact of the deck protection mod in any way, shape or form, but it is what I generally like using on anything that isn't American or Soviet, and that tends to get set on fire because carriers exist, and so do things like Smolensk, and it's really, really a thing that happens. And the third slot goes into steering, and that would be sort of how I was going to set this up. Now, you could do a torpedo defense build if you wanted to, but once again, 30% is a pretty decent base ratio, and I like to play these ships aggressively, as I'm wont to do, so that assists me more in that sort of playstyle. Commander skills. So if you've seen, when was it? Last Saturday's video about the fuel smokes, you'll realize, or well, I've realized as well, because I wasn't aware of that either, that the Mistweaver skill isn't particularly helpful with actually extending the duration of your fuel smoke. It is helpful with reducing the cooldown of your fuel smoke, but given that you only have 2 of them, and you've got you've got 2 really good other options that you're foregoing, I decided not to use that. So, Capitan Brusco here has the underwater protection expert. I mean, this is standard stuff. I have taken fire supremacy for a 3rd precise aim, and I have not taken the marksman skill. You might have noticed this isn't a mistake. The thing is, it's a precise aim 1. Even with the marksman skill, you're not going to get enough duration out of it to fire 2 salvos because of the reload. So it's not actually necessary to have that. It does reduce the cooldown as well, which is useful, but you can take the fully prepared for the repair kit cooldown instead, which is a good thing to have. I mean, it's not a terrible skill, but just don't expect that you'll be able to do 2 salvos with it. It's just for the cooldown if you want it. So, since we're not taking the Mistweaver, Extinguisher is obviously the one of choice. You could also go Adrenaline Rush to get faster reload on things when you're on low hit points. Also not a bad choice. I personally prefer the Extinguisher. I've taken a Close Quarters Combat Expert because of the range on the secondaries, and you do get a fair amount of them. And they can, in a brawl, actually be quite useful. You could also take the Demolition Expert. That's a perfectly valid choice to trigger Damacons if you shoot somebody's rudder off or engine or gun turrets or anything like that. And I do have the Honor Seeker because I don't get flooded all that often. So usually you can sort of control that with your damage controls, and it happens once every 20 games or so, and it's not really super worthy it. I mean, the Honor Seeker is not a great skill because there's relatively few stuff. I mean, you can get the first strike if you can manage, and that'll give you 1.5% damage that you're doing, which isn't a massive amount either. And then you'd have to, I mean, it's not that many skills that you can, or not many medals that you can get during the battle, before the battle is pretty much over. So yeah, it's not hugely useful, but yeah. One thing that I'm not sure of, I mean, for battleships, I would probably take the APCS. Because the difference between, so even if this was a captain who had the SAP penetration skill, like one of the legendary captains, I would probably still take the APCS for a battleship. First, because the alpha damage difference between SAP and AP on these 381mm guns is negligible. There's not much really. It must make a difference. And the AP has a very good penetration to begin with. You can cause a lot of citadels with these things, even though the caliber is relatively low. But she has got a lot of them. So I would probably go with APCS either way. So it doesn't really matter all that much to have a legendary captain here of any sorts. You can get the unique camouflage if you want, which gives you more hit points, more range, better dispersion, and better torpedo damage reduction. Worth it, but it's a tier 10. A camo is starting to get expensive with 6,000 gold. That is not an insignificant investment. So, assuming that not everyone has one, we're just going to use the Seaborne Assault. Okay, anything else that we need to mention about this ship? One thing that I keep forgetting, the battle honors. People have been asking me about this, to actually check the battle honors from time to time. I mean, it's a tech tree ship, right? So it's a grind. The premium ships battle honors are, well, they're literally free resources. It's usually like win a battle, sink a ship. Here, have some titanium or something like that. On the tech tree ships, that's not quite the case. So here, what do we get? Win 20 battles. Yes, you can do that. Destroy 50 cruisers. Yes, that's doable. 1.8 million damage. Totally doable. Destroy 90 ships. Doable. Cause 120,000 HP damage in one battle. I would have already done that. So. And I'm like, what, 5 battles or 10 battles into that thing. So, I don't know. It's a handful of battles. I can't remember. I haven't played that many because I didn't have time. Might even just be on the 5 side or so, 5, 6. Right. Okay. So we got that out of the way. Let's have a look at some gameplay here. And the first one is Epicenter on Cage. There are 2 destroyers on the enemy team and only 1 on our side. It's a 6v6. We're up against Midway, Republik, Freddy, and Nevsky, a Yugomo and a Jutland. So off we go. The thing with Italian battleships, I find, is that even though they lack the actual utility like radars or anything like that, or sonars, just given the sheer amount of alpha damage that they have against destroyers, I mean, you'd have to compare that with the HE shells. And if these things have SAP loaded, which they do by default, then they are absolutely terrifying. Which means that you can also oftentimes push forward a little more than you would otherwise do. All right, so I am going to head towards that, towards that island there. That's generally my preferred position if I'm in a battleship, just to see how the enemy team is dispositioned. And yeah, as you can see that the rear turrets are 360 whenever I'm going to turn a ship around, that they literally just move to the other side. Can't quite remember if I had realized that in this battle just yet, but I may have. Anyway, we're going to get next to that island, which gives us some screening from the enemy destroyers. Where's our... What was that? Kitakaze? Yeah, he's coming under air attack. Okay, there's Yugomo. And he hasn't obviously seen us, so precise aim out, shot line up. The problem is obviously, as you can see, the dispersion isn't great. And yeah, 2 hits, that was a bit disappointing. There could have been a lot more damage. I mean, the carrier is hammering that Yugomo. And we've also seen the Jutland, but he's lost most of his health, so we should be relatively safe from that thing by now. Let's see if we can get shot out at the Jutland. And I am kind of moving. I'm just sitting behind the island right now. See if I can get shot out of that thing. Okay, he's turning. I think some of them went into the island, but yeah, three hits. It still takes out a third of the ship. If I get a lucky hit in and get like 10 hits in, then that's an X-Destroyer. There's a bot out here. The semi-armor piercing actually at tier 10 right now with these ships is sufficient to hammer through the broadside belt armor even off a Des Moines. As you can see in a second. There she goes. So the armor piercing is still the better choice, but if you happen to have the SAP loaded, that's the thing. Okay, Jutland. There are some torps coming. Okay, I'm just gonna poke out here. I might be taking some Jutland torps, but it's just Jutland torps, and I have a relatively good torpedo damage reduction. I can take that. I haven't taken any damage yet. Yeah, Jutland's definitely dropped torps on me. I want to see if I can line up a shot. Okay, he's dodged the carrier torps. Now he's gonna go forward again. Shots lined up, and yeah, there come the Jutland torps, and the Haku actually takes him out before I can get to it. Yeah, a couple of torp hits don't. Barely a scratch. Okay, but it looks like our Kitakaze is in no rush to make his way into the center cup, which, given that there's a Nevsky out there, is probably understandable, and a carrier. So it's time to move, be a cruiser, be a destroyer, and move forward. So we're using the first fuel smoke, and just get through that. We're taking a couple of shots from the Freddy, obviously, because I think these were in the air before. But mostly I'm concerned about the Republic over there, although he should be focusing on Kitakaze, who's trying to set him on fire while sitting broadside on. We're going to use another SAP shot at the Nevsky, because there's still a Yugomo around that I haven't seen yet. He's not in the center cups, though, so probably going to switch over to the armor piercing, and... that Republic there is concerning me. There's Yugomo. Okay, so we do have to bow in towards Yugomo. Fortunately, nobody seems to be targeting me. Republic seems to be busy. Yeah, he's busy sinking our Brindisi and not being anywhere near. Freddy is still firing at me, and Nevsky decides that he wants to commit suicide by Italian battleship. I'm not somebody to reject that plea, so there he goes. Good night. I don't know where that Yugomo went. I am coming under air attack, I think, but the carrier is helping out. I mean, it's not that I don't have any AA whatsoever, but I'm also not super concerned. Okay, Freddy is out there, and I think, I don't know where Yugomo is. I have no idea. So let's just heal up a little bit and get some shots out at the Freddy from here. Scout plane up to get a better angle, and also, oh yeah, there's the Yugomo. Oh, I found you. Okay, but that's an emergency switch to armor piercing. He smokes to semi armor piercing. He smokes up, and yeah, he dropped. I think he dropped the other battleship behind me. So I was smoking up here. I was using the fuel smoke just to get the. Just to not enable him to lock on with the torpedoes. But the problem is I've got the plane up, so it's actually at these close ranges it can be a little difficult to aim. And yeah, I've completely overshot those. So yeah, But we're back to the armor piercing because we have a Friedrich der Große to brawl with. And yes, this is a German battleship. And yes, this is usually not a great idea. But we're 300 points ahead, so I can have a bit of fun. And I'm reasonably certain that at this range, these 380mm guns are going to do a number on this thing. So, yeah, shots out. Can't really miss at this range. 16 in, double citadel. Yes, do not underestimate the firepower of these things. And Haku takes him out. So back to the semi-armor piercing, because there's Yugumo once again. And trying to dodge some of the airdrop torpedoes that are coming down here. But no flooding, good, but I would have had a Damacon ready. Now I do have to keep an eye on Yugumo, because the carrier seems to be not interested, our carrier seems to be not interested in dealing with the destroyer and leaving that to the battleships. He's just it seems more interesting to kill that battleship back there. But yeah, anyway, we've got this on point, so there's no real concern here. Maybe I can still get a couple of shots out at the carrier once my scout plane comes off cooldown, and we'll be able to. Oh, there we go, scout plane up, and yeah, that's no problem. 15 kilometers. I think we can almost. We've got a range of almost 16 with the scout plane up. I haven't checked. There's still a Yugumo somewhere here, so I'm reluctant to just go broadside on here. There he is. Yeah, hello. Okay, he smokes up. He's on super low health, so I just need my forward guns to reload. He obviously smokes. There's going to be torpedoes in the water. And the friendly Freddy takes him out. Thanks, well done. I would have done it myself, but that's okay. And yeah, that thing is dead, and we're out on points, so I can't farm the carrier anymore. It's a bit of a shame, so we only did 93,000 points of damage. But like I said, 120,000 points is not that hard. So yeah, a couple of things to mention. You can play this thing quite aggressively because of the 360 rear turrets and the fuel smoke. Don't be afraid to get into a brawl. It's like a Lyon situation. You can't brawl as much as you can in a German battleship, but you can definitely do it quite a bit. Let's go for a second one. And here we actually have a full set, which is unusual. Matchmaker hasn't managed to slip some bots into the game. No carriers this time. It's double Vermont, Smolensk, Donskoy, Shima Gearing, and Chungmu. And we're playing Domination on Haven. We do have double Worcester on our side. So how much do you want to bet that I'm going to have to deal with the destroyers? Why am I even asking? Okay, yeah, but yeah, Smolensk is obviously an issue. So if we get shots at the Smolensk, this is actually a scenario where you want to use the semi-armor piercing, because what I found is that high penetration armor piercing on Smolensk tends to just over penetrate and can be quite frustrating to kill these things, because they have so little armor that unless you get a lucky citadel, it tends to just go through. So using SAP against the Smolensk can usually yield some devastating results, provided you can hit them, because they tend to sit in smoke screens. Okay. Either way, one of our destroyers decides that he wants to commit suicide and go to B, so I'm not even going to discuss. But the Shima is going to go in decap, so I am going to loop around here between the two islands. Now, if this battleship had, yeah, and you shouldn't be unloading your guns, because that gets you spotted. But I don't know, maybe that's a tactic. What was I saying? Yeah, in a battleship with regular turrets traverse, this would be a bit of a bad positioning, because I don't quite know yet if I'm going to have to focus on B cap. And surprisingly, the enemy has let us cap B, which is very unusual. But yeah, there's a destroyer in C cap, so I don't know which way around I'm going to have to turn my guns. They could also be coming around northward. Okay, there's the enemy Shima. It's been spotted. No. Why should I smoke up? There's no point in smoking up. I've got Shimakaze to shoot at. And it's a fuel smoke. You can't sit in it anyway. Okay. Shots out at Shima. Don't really have high hopes. Yeah, 3 hits. Not bad. But a maneuvering destroyer at long range is a bit of an issue. But yeah, now I can go bow in and take some shots here. Oh, there's the Smolensk. Hello, Mr. Smolensk. Okay, so there's Shimakaze. Smolensk obviously sets me on fire. Well, let's see where the Smolensk is. Okay, that was a torpedo hit, so he's somewhere on the left side. He's not. Yeah, he's about there-ish. Okay. Yeah, I've seen him. Don't worry. I'm just getting a clear shot at him. There we go. Shots out. There come the Shima torps, because I need to go bow in again. And yeah, this was 6 hits. Had I got 12 in, that would have been an ex-Smolensk. Well, it's half the Smolensk gone, so that's all good. Got a bit lucky here not to get flooded. but there was only one torp. Because once again, I don't need to be afraid of turning my ship around. Okay, and this Smolensk is very dead now because he's been sitting there for way too long and he's going in reverse. So no, I don't get to kill him. Izumo takes him out. But I am coming under concentrated fire of 2 Vermonts, which is not fun. And there comes Smolensk torps. I don't think they have range, but there's a Donskoy. So playing up, see if I can get a better angle at him. Oh no. There's a destroyer who's trying to get deleted by Italian battleships, so hello Mr. Chung Mu. I'm happy to oblige. Goodbye Mr. Chung Mu. Yeah. I love these guns. Alright, we're going over to the armor piercing because we've got Vermonts and the Donskoy to shoot at. And our scout plane is gonna go down again, so we're not gonna have the range anymore. But I think we've been taking quite a bit of fire, but we are good to, you know, just reverse a little bit. We're still within range and can still shoot at the Vermonts. Yes, we can shoot at the Vermont. That's not a problem. And yes, you can see the dispersion is dreadful, but if they're broadside on, they can still get 9 shells on target. That's not a problem. Okay, now we've run out of things to shoot at, so it's time to go forward again. Oh, hello, there's the Shima again. Okay, I'm not sure what the Iowa is doing over there. Well, he found the Shima. I mean, I'm not sure what he was expecting to find there, going forward like this. I'll try to help, but... okay, so you know that there's a Shimakaze, right? And you're still going around the island. Yeah, I can't do anything about him. The Shimakaze is on the other side of the island. If you had gone backwards and drawn him on this side, I would have been happily to oblige and kill the Shimakaze. But yeah, well, now the Iowa is dead and Shimakaze isn't. Oh well, and Shimakaze is unspotted. So, can I get some blind shots out of Vermont? He's probably stationary. Let's go back to the semi-armor piercing because there's a Shimakaze around. But he is on low hit points, so he's not going to go and rush me or anything. And but he was last spotted behind the island there, so let's be careful. And I am obviously spotted, but it could have been also that bunch over there, so I don't know yet if that's the Shima or not, but I'm gonna keep my bowers into that section. Ouch, yeah, that was Vermont. Okay, I'm gonna cover my turn here. I'm gonna go turn because it's not just that these guys can't see me, but also that Shimakaze can't lock onto me. And just perform a full turn here. Obviously I'm out turning my turrets right now, which is a bit annoying because I have a nice flat broadside. Okay, that's better. Of the Donskoy, and I think the Donskoy just started turning when I was firing, so that's probably not going to do an awful lot. Yeah, well, 4 hits, not too bad. Okay, there will be Shima torps in the water coming in between these 2 islands, so I do have to be a little bit careful. But I think we have no longer got any Vermonts to shoot at, so I can stick with the semi-armor piercing and just get some more shots out at... Here, there's one destroyer. Get some more shots out at the Donskoy, and I think he turned. Yeah, there's the gearing. The Shima must be somewhere here, so probably prudent to go forward. Oh, there he is. Yeah, hello. I knew you were there somewhere. Okay, so Shima got himself spotted, but I was already in full ahead, so these torpedoes are obviously hopefully going to miss. And yeah, the Worcesters are busy shooting at everything else except for the destroyers, such that our Shima had to kill the gearing. Well done, Shima. And yeah, we've got Donskoy to shoot at, but the enemy Shima is still around. I don't think he's got his torpedoes reloaded just yet. Yeah, as you can see, the semi-armor piercing is a perfectly valid choice, and our Shimakaze is a destroyer killer par excellence. Yeah. So you can see the semi-armor piercing is a perfectly valid choice when it comes to shooting at cruisers, especially light cruisers as well, but even heavy cruisers. You can do some serious amount of damage with these things. So well done. Well played, Shima, on our side, and except for that mildly suicidal Iowa, we would have almost gotten a Ruffle Stomp medal. Yeah, while we're trying to get in range of that Donskoy, because I don't have float planes anymore, so now I'm constrained to just 14 kilometers, which isn't all that much. The Christoforo Colombo, I want one. I am absolutely excited about this line. These things are great, and yeah, the Lepanto was great fun already, and this is effectively a better Lepanto at tier 10. So there's really very little to dislike about this ship. Obviously, it's a big ship, it's a big target, so you do occasionally have to be careful. But she's absolutely murderous against destroyers. At long range, it can be really hard to hit things. So I've had games where I've tried to kill a Minotaur. Tried for 2 minutes, I couldn't get a hit in because these things have basically Shima maneuverability. So if someone's actively dodging you at long range, don't even try. But if you get broadside battleships to shoot at, you can get a reasonable amount of shells on target. And you can be you can play destroyer. You can play anti-destroyer like cruiser role if you need to. You can deliver devastating blows to things like light cruisers. The AA isn't great, so if you're coming under concentrated carrier attacks, the torpedo protection does help, but you may need to find some company of something that has a bit of AA. Potentially a Dutch ship in the future. We'll see how that turns out, but absolutely loving these ships. They're great brawlers. They can be played very well aggressively. If you are more into the stand back and shoot things at long range, stationary sort of role, she can do that. But the 14-kilometer base range is going to hurt you, right? So you do need to sort of take an aggressive position a little bit, and that's where it can kind of hurt you a bit. If you like German battleships, this thing is not as tanky, but the playstyle I find often can be somewhat similar. And the secondaries are no joke on these things either. So these are good ships. I like these. I absolutely like these. Now I'm just going to have to grind up my way on my personal account such that I can actually play these things a little bit. But yeah, that's it for today. Thanks everybody, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.